Hello, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of Politics of the Empire, presented by theempiremedia.com. I'm your host, Dorf. I'm joined each and every week by Josh Houslander and Adam Hernandez, although Adam is going to be in and out tonight. He's got some other stuff he's got to deal with. So, long story short, let's just jump right into it. We're going to discuss tonight the concept that you're practically seeing play out in front of your very eyes, out in the open, that the corruption of the political primary system, the idea that not only was Bernie Sanders outly robbed, in the wide open of the
Yes.
Democratic nomination in 2016. But looks like the wheels are turning, so it's going to happen again. And then, on even another side note, is the fact that the rules are being changed because Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York and billionaire himself, is essentially bought the Democrat Party into changing the rules to whatever suits him, so he can participate in this election cycle that he decided not to get into until it was too late. So, believe it or not, back in 2017, the Democratic National Committee argued in court that they don't have a responsibility or a fiduciary duty to offer a fair primary process. They are allowed to essentially engage in this corruption out in the open, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And quite frankly, on a strictly legal interpretation, they're probably not wrong. But that doesn't mean it's right. And we're here to discuss that tonight. So how is everybody doing before we get into this? How we doing tonight, guys?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Apparently, we're doing better than you. So.
Yeah, no, I am. This is going to be my version of the Jordan flu game. I'm kidding. I'm nowhere near as talented as Michael Jordan in any facet of life. So, no, I'm a little bit under the weather, but we'll be okay. We'll carry on. We'll survive. So, should the DNC and the RNC, for that matter, they are private corporations. They're not actually government entities. They're not. I don't know what other. They don't have some sort of special status as political parties. They're a private company. The primaries is, in effect, an election to who gets to be president of the senior class. It can be determined however the hell they want. They can change the rules whenever the hell they want. And that's the way the game is played. It's just, however, the lack of honesty and transparency in that process, I don't think is okay in today's day and age, nor has it been, throughout the history of time. So with that in mind, first off, do you guys agree with my assumption or, my assessment here of this what's going on, or, and with that in mind, does anything need to be changed, or is this sort of system in place for a reason?
Dorf, I agree with you completely with the way you started the show so far. And you are absolutely right. And the DNC is absolutely right in saying legally they do not have, they aren't forced to do this by any means. We don't have control of their primaries. It is their primary to fix if they so desire. There are moral issues with that, of course. There are ethical issues with that, of course. But they do not have that thing. And I think a lot of people out there are ignorant to this system. And when I say ignorant, I just mean not taught. I don't mean dumb by any means. A lot of people don't quite understand this, and it's not their fault. This is not something that's taught in schools. It's not something that you forgot from 8th grade, government class. This isn't something that is talked about much. The idea of the primaries are nowhere to be found in the Constitution. This is not something that that they are circumventing. This is not something that they have to necessarily put in super dirty tricks to fix. It is, in fact, their system to fix. And a lot of people don't realize that, relatively speaking, or politically speaking, Although the United States of America is a fairly young country, even to us, the primaries are a very new idea. This is not something that, like I said, this is not in the Constitution. This hasn't been going on since 1789. This idea didn't even come about till the 1900s. So this idea that, basically they argue in their court case that, they have every right to pick their candidate in a smoke-filled room without the consent or the input of anyone involved. And not only is that true, but for years and years and years, that's exactly how it was done by the Democratic Party and by the Republicans, for that matter, and the Whigs and the parties that came before them. So this idea that that we have a right to a primary, it's not true. Now, I for one don't necessarily have a problem with them just choosing their candidate in a back room, but then they should just do that. They shouldn't have a primary then. The primary idea, the fact that we have primaries puts this idea in the voters' head that it is their choice. That it is there for them. That they are the ones choosing it. And the Democrats have basically come out and say, yeah, you kind of have the choice, unless we don't like your choice. Unless we think your choice is stupid, then we'll just pick who we're going to pick
also here
anyway.
to be clear, Josh, the Republicans have the same option too. That you just haven't seen them try and exercise it, at least openly here for, my lifetime at least. So,
well, in the Republicans' defense, they don't. I mean, truth be told, if this was the case, if the Republicans did the same type of things that the Democrats do, Donald Trump wouldn't be president.
No, it'd probably be Hillary Clinton. It would have been a Hillary Clinton versus probably Marco Rubio.
Or Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
That's what we'd be looking at. I'm not, trying to say like, yay, Republicans are the best ever right now, but their primary for the most part is pretty fair. It really does go.
And to be fair, at least in the latest election cycle, they did, Donald Trump won by the rules laid out there. They did back him and they stuck with him, even because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh, I know you're the our resident expert historian here. Just so the people know, I know this answer here. How were essentially primaries decided before the modern day primary system?
Well, the primaries come about with the progressive movement in the 1910s, roughly. And please, I've said this before on this show and other shows. When I say progressive in a historical context, please don't think about a wing of the Democratic Party. I'm talking about, the progressive movement, which included both Republicans and Democrats, and was opposed by both Republicans and Democrats. The two main progressives at the beginning of the movement were Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. One a Democrat, one a Republican, and very much political enemies of each other. Personally, but they absolutely hate each other personally. But they are the political fathers, if you will, of the progressive movement. And in that progressive movement, we get the referendum. We get many things from it, but the main three things we get are the referendum, the initiative, and of course, tonight's topic, the primaries. The primaries were this system put in place where the people would choose them. Now, what was strange about that, in a lot of ways, is by doing that, that seems like a great, a great hooray for democracy. But truth be told, it did more to solidify the duopoly of the Republicans and Democrats than it did to, to give us more of a democratic stronghold over the system. So, yeah, we get to choose the candidates now by the primaries, supposedly. But I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing. They used to have to, pick these people in they would still have a convention, and they would pick them in a crowded room of people or a not so crowded room of people, depending on the year, depending on how the party wanted to dictate it. But for the most part, that was it. They chose who their candidate was going to be, and then the people voted for them or they didn't. And now the Democrats seem to want to go back to it, but they want to keep up a farce of we have a primary.
Okay, and so here's another thing. The parties themselves, like I said before, this is the Essentially the primaries are, who's the king of the cool club. That's all it is. Um, is the existing structure in place where they can kind of make it up as they go, and just kind of use the actual primary votes is more of a guidance or suggestion on purpose to prevent a hijacking of the party.
It seems like it. And when you have
is the reason that Bernie Sanders got fucked before and is probably going to get fucked again is because he's not a Democrat. He's never been a Democrat.
Right. I mean, he technically is part of the Democratic Party now because that was one of their new rules that you couldn't.
He's been a Democrat for like 6 months.
Yeah, for like an hour.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. Whatever whatever the minimum amount of time was. Bernie Sanders is, move the party significantly left on the economic spectrum.
They've embraced socialism.
Is the system in place the way it is and such that to prevent a sort of this like interloper such as Bernie Sanders, who there is some overlap with, party platform, party principle, from hijacking the heart and soul of the party and moving it away from where the, let's call it the party elite wanted to go.
It certainly seems like it. And to me, I don't view Bernie Sanders, although I think Bernie Sanders is an honest person who is embracing what his ideology truly is and is actually using the proper vocabulary to describe his ideology. I don't know that he is further to the left than many of the other candidates running. But what I do know is that he is not.
No, what I mean by that is he moved the party to the left, which brought the people who are of similar mind as Bernie Sanders more to the front and found a new home within the party.
Yeah,
the party
I'm
wasn't
not
there
disagreeing
before
with you.
Bernie tried to essentially do a hostile takeover.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I just want to say that I don't think the reason that there's a backlash within the DNC is because Bernie is so far to the left. Although people like James Carville will, want to tell you that.
Well, James Carville is essentially the embodiment of the Democrat Party from like the early 2000s back to the like 60s, or not quite that far, but up until let's just say up till like 2004. Mm-hmm. That was James Carville.
Sure,
that's who he is.
Sure. I think the reason they dislike him so is because that he is a fringe candidate. He doesn't play by their rules. He's not. I think they fear that they can't control him, and that is why. I think that
they're afraid that not only will Bernie likely lose if he wins the nomination, he'll destroy Democrat trademark, whatever that means, and and spoil any sort of advantage and momentum that they had going through the Obama years. A 4-year blip of Trump can be passed off as just an accident or a mistake, but sort of the idea, the new Democrat Party going forward and holding political power. I mean, they've essentially ceded the judicial branch for another generation. The House and Senate will go back and forth forever. But at the same time, you're going to make Democrat trademark so unpalatable in national elections that you're going to see governorships that have never gone red go red. You're going to see because the down ballot effects of running a self-avowed socialist, I know Adam's not here to argue he's not a real socialist, he's a democratic socialist, but you know what, he's branded, and the perception is that he's one step away from communist, and there's still a significant amount of people in the country that will then forever, or for at least for another generation, associate communism with the Democratic Party, and that will destroy them for another decade or two at best.
I mean, I think there are people that think that's true. Do you think that's true? I mean, do you think that... Because to be perfectly honest, I actually think Bernie Sanders has a better chance of defeating Donald Trump than any of the other candidates on the Democratic side. I mean, that's purely conjecture, and it can never be tested because only one of them will inevitably get the nod.
Yeah, I think the way that running a guy that can be effectively branded as a communist will not win you Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Florida, which are you're going to need to flip 3 out of 4 of those to win this next election. And it won't pick you up enough states in the places where you could. It's not going to pick you up any states. It'll only lose you some. And you know what? Donald Trump may lose by a wider margin in the popular vote, but he may win by an even greater margin when it comes to the Electoral College, which is the only thing that matters.
Right.
And not to mention, there'll be down ballot effects from that.
Well, do you know what's kind of strange about this too is that the key parts. I know that this show isn't a news of the day show, and we're discussing the primary system at large. But what we'd be remiss to not mention the elephants in the room with this, and that's Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg. What's strange about a guy like Mike Bloomberg is that he wasn't a Democrat either.
No, he was a Republican when he ran the city of New York.
Yeah, and he's been a Republican, he's been an independent, and he's been a Democrat. At this point, if it ends up being, I know this show isn't about the duopoly, and I'm sorry for trying to, for getting off this for a second, but if it ends up being Donald Trump versus Mike Bloomberg, we basically have a New York billionaire who used to be a Democrat running as a Republican versus a New York billionaire who used to be a Republican running as a Democrat.
And everybody else will die of laughter.
Right. And in essence, what's happening then, despite all of that, the duopoly hits so hard and is so overbearing in this nation that the vast majority of voters will completely ignore that goofy little fact as something trivial, and the people that always vote for the R are going to vote for Trump, and the people that always vote for the D are going to vote for Bloomberg. It's kind of silly.
I'll tell you what, some of the edgy boy stuff that's coming out from Bloomberg's past here.
Oh, it's getting crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, some of that edgy boy stuff, let's call it, that's coming out of Bloomberg's past is like, oh, Mikey, are you a card-carrying member of what's known as the alt-right?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking in okay. And listen, I'm going to show my bias here. I'm not trying to show my bias, but in my opinion, Mike Bloomberg's the scariest man who's ever sought the office of president. I mean, he is to me. You could throw an alt-right label on him. You could throw a communist label on him. To me, he's a totalitarian, is what he is. He's an absolute totalitarian. And when you're a totalitarian, you care not about the minutia of party politics, about the right-left stuff. I mean, he doesn't care. He's going to go into
Do you think Mike Bloomberg would have run as a Republican this time if there wasn't an incumbent? I know he's backed Democrat issues and candidates galore for the last decade.
I think he might. If there was a crazy figure like Donald Trump, and that's not me saying that Donald Trump is necessarily crazy, but it's a crazy time right now to be following American politics. And if that type of figure was here on the Democratic side, yeah, I think Mike Bloomberg would probably be running as Republican against him.
Okay, well,
the thing is, the question I have, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not going to pretend to be. So if you're going to believe in the primary system at all, then, you got to kind of let them have their primary, if you will. I'm not a Democrat, but the question I have is, if you're a Democrat who believes in the primary system, or if you're a Democrat who plans to vote for Bernie Sanders, or if you're an independent, or a never-Trumper who doesn't like Trump but was thinking about voting for Bernie Sanders, are you still going to support a brokered convention when they steal it from Bernie again? Because I put that on the people more than I put it on the Democratic Party.
Rules, if Bernie isn't able to get enough, the 50% of the available delegates ahead of the convention, and it is a brokered convention, that's when you see some fuckery likely to the aid of Michael Bloomberg, because there's nothing saying that Michael Bloomberg can't go to each one of those delegates or, pack of delegates and essentially say, I will set you up financially for life with my $60 to $100 billion that I have in my bank account, depending on who you believe. And he's not buying, or he's not even working on this already, where he's not, he's attempting to essentially buy up precincts precinct captains and things like that to you.
Sure.
And you know what? Just get me to the convention, and there'll be $30,000 in your bank account tomorrow that will be come from this group. And here's the thing: that's not illegal.
No, it's not. No, it's
As
not.
long as you pay your taxes, that's not illegal.
No, it certainly isn't. Totally unethical. But the thing is with a guy like Bloomberg is you have to ask yourself, and this is the question I keep asking myself right now. Sure, he's had some gaffes here, and he's had some things come out that could be devastating to a candidate.
It's not even gaffes. It's just it's not like he's speaking in public that are saying things that are, oh yeah, he's had some. Never mind. Continue.
But my point with that is that the question I keep asking myself, and I think other people should be asking, is there anything that money can't buy or that money can't buy you out of? And right now, Bloomberg's numbers are going up simply because he's shoving himself down our throats with the amount of money he has. His numbers will go up. And
what will be really the indicator of whether or not it works is he's, believe it or not, has not been listed on the primary ballots in the first 2 states, nor will he be on the next 2.
Mm-hmm.
He filed too late, didn't get enough signatures, whatever. He will not be on a ballot. You can still write him in or whatever. He will not actually be on a ballot until Super Tuesday.
What I find to be very strange about this whole thing is that, and it shows that there is definitely some corruption in play, is that we are 2 primaries in, and you have members of the DNC saying things like, there's a 40% chance that this primary, that this nomination, that this convention will be brokered. And we are 2 primaries in, and the same 2 people have gotten first and second in both of them. And they're actually going to say that, yeah, there's a 40% chance it's going to be brokered. Think about what that statement means. That means that there are people that have every intention of brokering this convention regardless. Because, quite honestly, there's no reason with past precedent in play to think that Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg will not continue to have the exact same success that they're having. Actually, more so.
At the same time, you look at
out.
Even in the case of broker convention, Mike Bloomberg could walk in there with there's 4,000 some odd total delegates. He could walk in there with 10 delegates.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he gets past that first, I think it's the first vote, they can vote for whoever the hell they want.
Yeah,
those delegates can. So then you have 4,000 individual people that get to choose who they vote for in that second vote, however the fuck they feel like it.
Yeah, so
it's a very easily and accomplishable list that you could get people to,
and after that first vote,
Bagman can reach that
after that first vote, which we can be certain will go past that first vote. After that first vote, not only is Mike Bloomberg in play, but Hillary Clinton's in play. John Kerry's in play.
They don't have to vote for anybody. They could nominate your dog.
Absolutely they could. And what will most likely happen is, and call me crazy, call me a conspiracy theorist, call me whatever you want, if they end up giving this to Bloomberg, he's going to have some sort of running mate like that. It's going to be a Bloomberg Clinton ticket. It's going to be a Bloomberg Kerry ticket. Because that's how they are going to attempt to fakely in capital letters, win this back over and act like they are doing the right thing for the Democratic Party when it's really just them screwing Bernie Sanders.
If that were to happen too, I can't wait to see people piss on the ashes of the DNC. Obviously I don't want that to happen. I want Bernie Sanders to win it. I want him to win the nomination, which I think he will if things are fair going forward. But in the event that doesn't happen, I am perfectly fine with seeing the DNC burn down and people piss on its ashes.
Well, and Adam, the point we were making right before you sat back down was saying how many Bernie supporters, how many people who supposedly support this system will then turn around and still vote for the D when they've stolen it from Bernie Sanders and given it to somebody else.
You're gonna have people do that regardless, and it happens on both sides too. Not to just pick on the DNC, but how many never Trumpers are going to end up voting for Donald Trump, or how many small government, conservatives are going, ended up voting for Donald Trump and are going to continue to vote for Donald Trump just because he's the quote unquote conservative or Republican running in the race. And same thing on the other side too.
But isn't it so much different to have the candidate you don't like win your primary fairly and say, okay, I guess I'll support him, than to have the candidate or one of the candidates you like have it stolen from them and then vote for the other person?
Yeah, it's what people will end up saying is, well, it wasn't so-and-so that stole it. It was the DNC that stole it.
Sure.
Okay, well, they have...
But it was them that stole it.
They have somewhat of a point. I don't know how much of a point they have, considering, since it was Hillary Clinton the first time around. I mean, I think people would be completely naive to think that Hillary Clinton didn't have something to do with the fucking over of Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Well, at the same time, here's another danger in the current primary system is single individuals or families or something like that have such enormous influence in the process, whether it's like the Clintons, because quite frankly, they know where all the bodies are, not literally. Sure. I'm not saying, Clinton body count, but, they know where the bodies are buried, in a metaphoric sense.
Yeah.
And how many individuals throughout the party structure owe their careers, place, and jobs to the Clinton family.
Mm-hmm.
They're a political dynasty. They have, the same thing
machine.
For
the
old Republican establishment that's essentially been flushed over the last 5 or 6 years, whether, through the Tea Party movement into the Trump era of how many, the Bushes that, how many families' lives were made by the Bush family.
Right.
Hey, Dorf, it's like,
yes.
it's like if you want to use a sports analogy, it's like, it's like the coaching trees, how they have the Bill Parcells coaching tree or the Bill Belichick coaching tree or, so on and so forth. That's kind of how this is, but sorry, finish your point.
No, but at the same time, that influence kind of, buys, that influence buys influence. God, what a terrible statement. But at the same time, the way the primary system and the party system is structured, that kind of stuff is, let's call it the most efficient way to do business. It's very, like, especially what you're seeing with like a Pete Buttigieg here. And you saw Barack Obama in 2008 or 2007, 6, 8, that primary process. Who was Barack Obama? He was a 1/3 term junior senator from Illinois that had never done anything famous nationally before. Pete Buttigieg is a 2-term small town mayor that no one's really heard about before. They're trying to pluck these guys because they're essentially cast out of a Hollywood mold that looking at we've taken some polling data about what the U.S. finds most electable and whether it's physical traits, policy traits, et cetera, and we're just going to find the candidate that matches the most of these the strongest. You could argue that's how Barack Obama rose to power. You're going to argue that's behind the majority of the success for Mayor Pete, so far in this process is he was cast for it. He doesn't have that political influence, that time built up climbing the ranks of the party that like Hillary Clinton did. Not only was she let's call it a co-president with her husband. She was a multi-term senator in New York. She was the Secretary of State. And I'm sure there's other stuff that I'm forgetting throughout this process, but, she had built up that sort of influence. That's another reason why I think that in a brokered convention, Mike Bloomberg, who essentially has bought and paid for every key to power within the Democratic Party establishment, as long as he can get to that second vote, Mike Bloomberg is your nominee. Yeah. And it'll be spun, 5 different ways that, he's the most electable, or he's the best of all possibilities. or whatever like that, people will trudge out there and try to defend it. But no, that's bullshit.
It is bullshit. It is. I mean,
it's because every PAC that he supports owes their prominence to him. I mean, you look at that Moms Demand Action Group that sprung up after Sandy Hook. Mike Bloomberg has financed that thing and still finances it all to this day. That group would have probably organically fizzled out relatively soon thereafter, had Mike Bloomberg not continued to bankroll, and they continue to use political influence all over the world. Look, just that they're going after that group is currently going after the gun laws in Arizona. Good luck, by the way. But that idea that Mike Bloomberg, everybody's already in his pocket. He just has to get to that second ballot, and he's going to be your nominee.
And it's so concerning too what these are turning into. And I don't know if you guys touched on this or not before I came back in, but and I think I mentioned it before too on another show. As far as somebody like Kamala Harris, very well-known senator out of California, Cory Booker, very well-known senator out of New Jersey, having to drop out of the race because they didn't have enough money. They didn't have enough money to continue. Yet Mike Bloomberg, who is, throwing around his $60+ billion that he has in his pocket, but not even that. He's getting the loose change out of the the cushions of his sofa to sit here and essentially like everybody's saying is buying himself an election. I don't think it shouldn't be any vast coincidence that the DNC bent their own rules to allow Mike Bloomberg into this debate.
Well, believe it or not, he actually qualified under the old rules. The last second poll release.
But the thing is though, Dorf, when Cory Booker was asking for them to basically do him a solid and change up the rules a little bit so he can get in debates, or when Julian Castro was asking the same thing. And again, you know what the thing is too? It's Julian Castro, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. Those are three individuals. And again, I'm not a supporter of any one of them, but those are three individuals. I don't think anybody can argue with this. Are the most loyal Democrats that you can probably get.
Sure, yeah. Been Democrats since day one.
Good soldiers.
Paid their dues.
Yes.
You're not going to argue. I don't like
Mike Bloomberg.
Either, but you can't argue that they're not good soldiers.
Less than a decade ago, Mike Bloomberg was a Republican. He supported George W. Bush against Barack Obama for not for president, but he supported I believe, John McCain against Barack Obama in the the 2008 election. He supported George W. Bush.
The way we put it, Adam, was if this ends up being Trump versus Bloomberg, we have a New York billionaire who used to be a Democrat now running as a Republican versus a New York billionaire who used to be a Republican now running as a Democrat.
And they're neither. They are opportunists.
No. Exactly.
Donald Trump isn't a Republican. Donald Trump is an opportunist.
Donald Trump is a 90s Democrat.
Mike Bloomberg isn't a Democrat or a Republican. He's an opportunist. That's what these corporate politicians will do. They will mold themselves. They will latch onto the flavor of the week and run with it. Donald Trump latched onto something and ran with it all the way to the White House. Mike Bloomberg's going to do the same exact thing. Essentially, what we may have here are two old racist guys running for president. And there's going to be is there really any big difference between Donald Trump and Mike Bloomberg?
No, there's a general I was about to say, Adam.
Other than you can argue
personal wealth. Okay.
Jared, I was going to say is, are the Democrats just doing this so they can say, hey, our rich white guy is richer, racister, and says even dumber stuff than your rich white guy? I mean, is that their play here?
I don't know, and that's the thing too. And this is one of the problems with Vote Blue, no matter who, is, are you really, what Democrat out there can really sit there and be honest with themselves that they would vote for Mike Bloomberg in the upcoming election? Are you fucking kidding me? Well, where's the DNC condemning these?
They're not going to. He owns them.
I know, but it just goes to show just how fucked up this whole thing is, because they will sit here, they will call Donald Trump a racist, a bigot, and you know what? They're right, because Donald Trump is a racist and he is a bigot. But you know what? That means nothing now, because there's absolute crickets when it comes to addressing the stop and frisk bullshit that he was pushing when he was the mayor of New York. And you know what? As much as he wants to come out and say that he inherited, which he's right, he inherited it from Rudy Giuliani, but he didn't try to stop it. And in fact, he expanded upon it when he was mayor of New York.
Oh, he embraced it.
He
actually embraced it more than Giuliani did. To be honest.
He expanded on it.
Giuliani was like, and listen, I'm no Rudy Giuliani fan by any means, but Rudy Giuliani put it in place saying, this is going to be rough, but we're going to give it a shot. Mike Bloomberg, he doubled down big time. And like you said, Adam, he's an opportunist. Now he's coming out against stop and frisk because of what it supposedly did, but he's not.
No, he's not.
It never bothered him that he was taking away those people's liberty until he found out that it bothered some voters who now he needs to vote for him.
Well, damn well he's not actually truthful about it. I mean, look at his comments about that were released or brought back up or whatever you want to call it from like as far back as like 2015.
Yeah.
Essentially saying that, white people are over policed considering how much they commit crime relative to people of color. And it's just like, dude, that's not like whoa, man, that was like 20 years ago. Man, I've learned a lot. I'm like, that was practically in political terms yesterday.
Right. He said that as a 75-year-old man, and now he's a 78-year-old man. But are we supposed to believe he changed? He woke up overnight?
And all these characters are interconnected together.
Well, quite frankly, if the Democrats were going to try to run on, we have the moral high ground here, we're running the more clean presidential candidate, I don't think you can't play that card anymore. It's over. You've taken Bloomberg's money, whether or not he wins or not. Any sort of attack from that perspective can be countered with, look whose money you just took.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, you're right. It's
So at the same time, if the DNC wanted to be the cloak and dagger in the smoke-filled room thing here, would it have been smart for them to say no to Bloomberg's money? Or is it too late? All those relationships have been fostered over the last decade, hoping for this set of circumstances to arise where Mike Bloomberg could come to power.
Well, yeah, I mean they're shitting their pants right now because Joe Biden's campaign is sputtering out of control. It's crashing and burning.
He'll be done after Super Tuesday. Same with Elizabeth Warren.
Pete Buttigieg is polling. I think Josh is polling higher with African Americans than Pete Buttigieg is right now. And who does that leave? It leaves Bernie Sanders
and Amy Klobuchar.
Again, I think you're polling higher with African Americans than Amy Klobuchar is. Again, that leaves Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. So what do? They go to Plan C. Oh yes, Mike. We'll take you on.
Sure.
We'll take you and your money on as long as a Democratic socialist doesn't win the nomination and end up trying to roll back all the corporate bullshit that we help push in Washington. Mm-hmm. And that's what this comes down to. That's what it comes down to. I'm sorry, you're not going to sell me on it not being good for the party, considering how many millennial voters embrace what Bernie Sanders is pushing here. Because millennial voters are the future of this country. Well, it's not just the future of this country. The future is now in some regard, but what the Democratic establishment
They're
is
still
afraid,
only the third biggest voting demographic.
what the Democratic establishment is worried about right now is vast change coming to their corporate policies that they continually like to push. And again, same thing goes for the Republicans too. But that's what they're ultimately afraid of. They're afraid of real shakeup.
No,
Same thing with the Republicans too. When it came to Donald Trump, only the thing with Donald Trump is he fell in line. He fell in line with Washington and corporate Republicans. And if that wasn't the case, then why did he give him this huge tax break?
Well, when it comes to in a primary perspective, when you're looking at Bloomberg, what I find strange about this is this idea that people say, "Oh, he didn't get in time, so he's not in New Hampshire and Iowa, and he's jumping in here." But we know that that's all nonsense. It's BS. That's not what happened. I mean, it is what happened. But Mike Bloomberg's been running for president for 5 years. We all know that. Mike Bloomberg's name has been kicked around in this arena for a long time. He had a complete campaign in place, ready to go. He's attempting to steal this election. There's no doubt about that. He deliberately stayed out of this in the beginning so he could attempt to broker the convention and get the nomination.
Because he knew he wouldn't win any other way.
Right. And this is done on purpose. He's attempting to do is this
brilliant Machiavellian strategy, or is this, just a weakness in the system?
I don't know that it's brilliant, but I think it's definitely Machiavellian. And I think Bloomberg is attempting to play the same type of 5D chess that the Trumpkins claim their guy does. He's trying to jump in and win this the best way he can.
Hey, excuse me, Josh. It's 5D underwater chess.
5D under. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not woke on that terminology. But that's certainly what he's doing. It goes back to this dates back to people that study Dewey versus Truman, or elections like that. It's the idea of whether it's the art of politics or the science of politics, and this is what he's attempting to do, is to break it down into a science.
Well, this will be a great case study for the era of, is there nothing that money can't buy? You see all the well-attended rallies and enthusiastic rallies that you see taking on for Mike Bloomberg, or does that have more to do with the fact that they're all catered?
Sure.
Yeah. There's people out there. What is he offering?
You essentially get a 5-star dinner to show up to his rallies.
Well, no, he's offering people to come work for his campaign.
He's tripled salaries.
Yeah.
Standard going rate salaries for any sort of position within a campaign organization.
And I've heard people on some of the podcasts that I listen to who are talking to some of these Bloomberg campaign workers, and they're saying, "Yeah, I don't support the guy, but I don't have not to. I don't have a choice.
Sure.
I can't afford not to take this job." And
to be fair, the most level, above camp, field organizer makes I forget what it is. It's $14 an hour is what it's equivalent to. But there's a shit ton of overtime. Mike Bloomberg salaried those people at $80,000. Jesus Christ.
He's made it very clear that. We all know that he's the richest man to ever run for president, and also he's an old man. He has nothing to do with this money. He can bankrupt himself if he.
Does he have any kids?
I should know that, and I don't.
I don't either. I'll get on that.
I know he's got.
I'll look for it.
I know he's got a zillion sexual harassment.
68 total,
68,
I think.
is what the number's
68
up to.
68 sexual harassment. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
More than Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah, he dwarfs Donald Trump. He's better than Trump in every way.
There's something else. Our candidate sexual harasses more women than yours.
Yeah, he doesn't grab him by the pussy. He grabs him by the pussies. He's everywhere. He's all over the place. But no, this is
Two kids.
Two kids. Okay.
2 kids. Yep.
And I'm sure he's already given them their $1 billion. So, I wouldn't worry about them. But I don't. I just don't see where. I don't know. The problem is, yes, I mean, you can point out the corruption of the DNC all you want. You can point out the flaws in the primary system all you want. But here we are discussing how and who are going to support these candidates. And personally, I don't know how or why people would support Mike Bloomberg or Donald Trump for president of the United States, but I'm the crazy one. Because 97% of the voters are gonna, if that's the case. Whether it's Trump Bloomberg, Trump Clinton, Trump Sanders, whoever. That's what's gonna happen. And sorry guys, but until people wake up, I don't know that it matters. Personally, when it comes to the primaries, to get back on topic, if the Democrats are going to make their system so goofy, then why don't they just pick it in a back room? In a smoke-filled convention with half a dozen people.
Because democracy.
I mean, it's ignorant. Do you remember?
Hey, get it right. It's...
You know what? And I even kind of want to, although he's the one getting screwed here, or will most likely get screwed, I even want to throw some shade at Bernie Sanders a little bit here. Because what was one of Bernie's top things he kept saying when he was running for president last time, and when he was running for the Democratic nomination, and when he won the Democratic nomination last time, it was stolen from him. One of the big things he kept saying was that the system is rigged.
Mm-hmm.
The system's rigged. It was ringing with American people. They liked it. They agreed with him. They were voting for him. And now I find it strange that he's not saying that anymore. It's almost like, Bernie, remember that
Nobody likes a sore loser.
Well, but I kind of think it's, hey, Bernie, remember that house we bought you? You got to, if you want any press at all, you gotta lose the part about the system being rigged, because our system's rigged. And
I mean, in all fairness, what is he really going to do? I mean, it's not like he could change it. I mean, the only thing he can do is attempt to. I mean, this is his last chance, obviously.
Sure.
I mean, what
I thought last time was his last chance.
I mean, what else is he going to be able to do? I mean, he can do it. He can run. He can hope that the DNC doesn't fuck him over, and if they do, it doesn't cost him the election. But I mean, there's plenty of people out there that are pissed about that, and they're pissed about him endorsing Hillary Clinton when it was all said and done last time. But
so why do you think like 10% of people who voted for Sanders in the 2016 primary voted for Donald Trump in the general for that exact reason?
Wait, what?
Yeah, say that again, Dorf. I kind of missed it myself.
10% of those who voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary in 2016 voted for Donald Trump in the general. It's because the message of this system is bullshit resonated, because quite frankly, Donald Trump ran on that a lot too in 2016.
Well, Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. I mean, during 2016, they did have some overlapping talking points.
Still do.
Regarding trade, regarding the working class, which is something that that Hillary Clinton didn't bother to address during her campaign, because she thought, oh well, I'm a Democrat. They're gonna. That's something
for me no matter what.
Yeah, it's a given. I don't need to address that. I don't need to visit Michigan or Wisconsin or Ohio or anything. Well, Ohio she did, but they don't. I don't have to address any of that. But I mean, Donald Trump has proven to be awful for the working class, and that's been a message that Bernie Sanders has pushed his entire life. But I mean, Josh, I hear you. I hear the criticism towards Bernie when it comes to that. But I mean, realistically speaking, I don't know that there's anything he can do about it.
I don't either. I don't disagree. A point I would make, historically speaking, is when you look at close elections or brokered conventions or brokered primaries, or however you want to put it, when you look at that through the through the lens of history, in American history, I should say. When you look at this, you see this tinge of corruption that pops up, but it's a bit of corruption that makes sense. Because it's corruption, and I'm sorry if you guys aren't following me at first, but just bear with me. There's this tinge of corruption where they make a backroom deal, but it's in some ways it's an acceptable form of corruption because they are taking two candidates or two or more candidates and they're brokering a deal based on people that do have support that were voted on. Now, if the thing we all seem to be kind of predicting takes place here, and Bernie wins the primaries and comes out with the most amount of delegates, but they take the convention away, it'd be one thing if they say, well, Bloomberg's got all the support, people went to him, so it's going to be a Bloomberg-Sanders ticket. That would make sense to some degree. If, okay, Bernie gets the most, but we're going to shift our weight to Bloomberg because more delegates are moving towards him, so we're going to have Bloomberg-Sanders. But does anyone think that's going to happen? Because I don't see them even doing that. And then if you look back historically, whether it's all the way back to...
They're throwing too many barbs at each other right now.
That doesn't matter. They haven't said anything compared to what Reagan and Bush said to each other. And that's an example of that. Whether you... And then you can go all the way back to... You can go to John Quincy Adams, Henry Clay. You can go to James Garfield. And, oh, geez, how can I... Chester A. Arthur. That's an example of these, political rivals who they said, God, it's so close we can't decide. So they're going to be a team. They're going to unify the party here. But it won't be. If it's Bloomberg, it's going to be Bloomberg Hillary. It's going to be Bloomberg Kerry. It's going to be Bloomberg... I don't know. Maybe they throw in somebody from the primary. But we all know it won't be Bernie Sanders, though. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We'll see. It's only a matter of months before we do. But Ronald Reagan and George Bush were very much opposites. But when Reagan, who wasn't the front runner, came out of nowhere and won the hearts of the people, and the convention wasn't brokered, but it did go past the first couple of votes, it was obvious that this needs to be a Reagan-Bush ticket. The only one that was even being kicked around other than that was they were actually considering the idea of putting Gerald Ford back on the ticket as a running mate behind Reagan. But they just thought that was kind of dumb since he had already been president at that point. Like I said, unifying the party, Chester A. Arthur and James Garfield, the two sects of the, that's what they could do if they really wanted some of this. But they don't want that. It's not going to be Bloomberg Sanders. They want Bernie out. And they're basically coming right out and saying that. They're coming right out and saying it. It's not like, if it isn't a type of thing where it's going to be Bloomberg wins, and then Bernie Sanders becomes Secretary of the Treasury. Or Bernie Sanders gets a top cabinet spot. No, they want Bernie out. He's not going to do anything. He's not getting a job in this administration, even if he comes out with the most Democratic votes in the Democratic primary. That's where it's fixed. His senatorship, that's all. That's where it's fixed. That's where it's unethical. That's where it's wrong, and that's where they are cheating their own system.
Hey, Dorf, you just mentioned something there too, where you said that Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat, which I'm assuming is DNC justification for, hey, we can go ahead and fuck this guy over. Well, at the same time, Michael Bloomberg isn't a Republican or a Democrat either.
Yeah, exactly. But we had a discussion earlier that when you were out there about whether or not the way the system is now is on purpose to avoid, essentially hostile takeovers or interlopers adopting a brand to take over the party, and whether or not that backroom cloak and dagger system is in place for just that reason. It's just the only problem is Bernie Sanders doesn't have enough money to buy it off in his favor, where Mike Bloomberg does.
You see, that's the thing too. Is like, you use the term hijack a party when it's not that at all. It's not like Bernie Sanders is coming in here with an AK-47 and saying, hey, this party's mine now. Deal with it.
Right.
No,
he's significantly moved the party platform. You can't deny that since 2015.
No, but
you know what else he significantly moved? The votes of Democrats.
Exactly, but that's exactly it. Doesn't matter, that he's moved the platform further left. He's moved it based on voters, and that's supposed to be the bedrock of American democracy, which is, every day it's just a bigger sham than the day before.
No, I'm not a Sanders supporter. I don't particularly care for the things he says. But if he wins this thing, I mean, come on. I know I often criticize voting and democracy, but I mean, come on, that's fair. That's the system, right? If it's a two-party system, which it is,
by the rules of the game, you should let him.
Yeah, I mean, the people have spoken. If they want Bernie Sanders on their ticket, then they deserve to have that. The American people deserve to have Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders.
Hey, Josh.
Whoever wins, whoever loses, it doesn't matter. That's who the people have spoken. The
way the DNC is conducting themselves, Josh, was there ever a better example for anarchy?
No, there is not. Well, and the thing is, I'm sorry to get overly ideological. I'll be brief, I promise. But this goes to show that when you have totalitarianism, and it doesn't mean that it's a totalitarian government to have totalitarianism over your own system, but when you have totalitarianism, you have chaos. Totalitarianism breeds chaos. Chaos, despite what people will tell you, chaos is the opposite of anarchy. Anarchy isn't chaos. Totalitarianism is chaos. And this is what's happened. The Democratic Party is in chaos. Because of this. Because of their own rules. They could have said it beforehand. They had plenty of time. We've known that Bernie Sanders was going to run for president in 2020 for 4 years now. We've known since 2016. We knew that last time Hillary Clinton stole it from him, that he wasn't done. That if he was still ticking, if he was still alive in 2020, that he'd be running for president. They had 4 years to say, no, we're not doing a primary. They could have done that. That would be, I don't think it'd be cool to do that, but that would at least be fair. That would, for them to say, well, we don't have to go by our primary, then don't have a primary. Don't have a primary.
Have it, but have everybody know that it's entirely just it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you spend all that money and waste people's time for a suggestion.
Could they come out and say, we just want
informed opinion?
We want Democrats. We don't want if you have an I next to your name when you're on C-SPAN, that's not going to work for us.
Right.
We just want.
And the Democrats did that to some degree, and Bernie Sanders joined the Democratic Party. He did.
They could have not taken his registration if
they
were really that worried about it.
They absolutely could have. But again, what's funny about that is the guy they're choosing, or the guy that looks like the guy they're leaning towards, Bloomberg, is actually in the exact same boat as Bernie when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And there was cries for that on the Republican side last time. When Trump came in, there were never Trumpers who came out who legitimately said, listen, Donald Trump's not a Republican. I don't think we should let him run in our primary.
Well, fuck, his kids couldn't even vote for him in their own primary because they're still registered Democrats.
Exactly. Because they have a closed primary in New York.
Yeah.
But there were people that wanted that. But actually, and I'd say to their credit, to the Republicans' credit, they said, no, our primary's open. Anyone can run for this. And the Democrats kind of did that last time, but when they said, oh, crap, that didn't work out for us.
Superdelegates.
Yeah, superdelegates. And from now on, you got to be a Democrat. You better, not just a fake Democrat, not just somebody who Democrats like, you got to be a real Democrat. What did Bernie Sanders do? He became a real Democrat. Real thing. He switched over. He dropped his independent and his socialist, and he became a Democrat. No, still not good enough. We're still going to screw you, Bernie.
He's a Dino.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's a pretty good place to put a bow on it. Anything else we want to get in closing statements wise? Please be brief.
I'm going to be debuting a new solo show here in a couple weeks.
Oh, are you? What's it about?
Cool.
Go ahead and tease it.
It's going to be called the Manifesto. It's my leftist talk, which you guys aren't invited on. So
Right on. Cool. Looking forward to listening.
It's gonna be there's gonna be some
Hippie drum circle hour. Yay.
no, there's gonna be some social commentary.
Cool.
Some education.
Do you have a time slot for it yet that we can plug?
No, it's probably not gonna be. It's not gonna be live.
Okay.
Some of it may be live, which stay tuned. But there's gonna be some video stuff. There's gonna be obviously some audio stuff. But
So how frequent? What day usually?
probably
Anything like
it's
that?
probably going to be every other week, hopefully.
Cool.
But there may be some stuff and
An hour or
but,
half hour? What are you targeting?
I don't know. It's going to be whatever the content calls for.
Okay, cool. Well, good luck to you. Josh, what about you?
Closing statements. Listen, I think primaries, if they are going to be conducted, they should be conducted properly, and I don't even want to say fairly, but logically. They should be conducted in a way that people understand and that people can function within them. With that being said, I don't even like primaries. I wish they'd do away with them.
So
But-
you're not okay with Vermin Supreme winning a couple libertarian primaries?
Wow.
There, with Vermin, the libertarian primary, they're calling it a primary, but it's really not. It's really, if other parties had it, they would call it a straw poll. Is in essence what Vermin Supreme
That's
won.
true.
But
Vermin Supreme, by the way, he has an English counterpart. It's called Lord Buckethead. He literally wears a trash can on his head.
love it. I got to look into him. But that's all for me, Dorf.
Okay, and same thing with me. If the primary system's going to continue as such, I think there should be some sort of fiduciary responsibility to play by the rules of the game that they've laid out. Or if we wanted to trash can it all together, I'm cool with that too. All right, anything else, guys?
That's it.
All right,
Thanks,
that's
Dorf.
going to wrap up the latest episode of Politics of the Empire, presented by the EmpireMedia.com. Join us again in, I believe, it's going to be 2 weeks. It'll be the 3rd of March for our next episode of Politics of the Empire. Until then, I'm Dorf, joined by Josh and Adam. We'll see y'all next time.